All right, where it go?
Okay. All right, so we're going to start the Finance Committee meeting. The main discussion we have tonight on the agenda is for the campus-wide radio replacements for Motorola. So Dennis has the information and he'll present that.
All right, let me share my screen here. All right, can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so as we discussed before, we're looking to replace all of the radios that we currently have. Why are we doing this? So it was discovered that actually we currently don't have the FCC licensing that we need for the radio frequency that we're using. That was one of the first things that kind of that came to the front. And so I was looking at what we were going to need to do for that. And then also we're going to want to replace the radios. We need to replace, I should say, the radios for staff communication and the law enforcement program. So the radios that we're looking to purchase isn't just for, staff and faculty use. Like I said, we're going to be replacing about 25 radios within the law enforcement program. We're seeking to get better campus-wide communication when using the radios. There's a lot of static and sometimes just complete failure to hear the person transmitting depending on how far away the two people are. And we use our radios actually every day. We use it for when we're doing the bus calls. We use them for the fire drills, other drills that we perform and all that. So it is a daily tool that we use. And having people miss out on communications, it can be frustrating, especially when things are pretty busy. And then several of the radios that we have, actually probably most of the radios are 6+ years older and needing replacement. And every year I'm spending roughly $1,500 a year just on replacement batteries, antennas, and the radios themselves. So what we did is we reached out to a few different vendors, tried to get pricing on different options. So one of the vendors that we reached out to was this Discount Two-Way Radio. They proposed this RCA RDR 2500. Radioparts.com. This is where I've been currently buying all of my replacement parts and radios. Their proposal was a Kenwood Pro Talk Digital NXP 500. And then wireless communications and electronics, they proposed the Motorola DTR 700. And then there is also the option of keeping our current solution, but we'll go over that. So what we did is, if we were able to, we got testing units from the vendor, just so that we could test out the actual radios that they were proposing. And then I just put together this little pros and cons list, based on our findings so far. So the Discount Two-Way Radio solution, this one came in as the mid-grade cost. This wasn't the most expensive, but not the cheapest. They included some charging accessories in the quote, which I didn't ask for, but that was pretty nice. So that is also something that's impacting the pricing. When we tested them, we did have good communication throughout most of the campus. I was up by the Red Barn, and Adrian, the other gentleman in my department, was over at the reception area. While we could hear each other, it wasn't quite as clear. There was a little bit of static, and then we also received that same result when Adrian was over at the reception and I was downstairs in the basement. We also did notice a little bit of a drop of quality there too. And then if we go with this solution, it's going to require us to purchase the FCC licensing, which could cost around $2,000. The radioparts.com solution, they were not able to provide me with test hardware, so I can't really speak as to the quality of the transmission, given the tests that we were doing. And then this solution will also require the FCC licensing to get renewed. Wireless communications and electronics. So this one was the most expensive option, but we did have clear communication in all the tests that we ran, no static, everything came through pretty crystal clear. And one of the big benefits with this one is that it does not require the purchase of the FCC licensing because of the frequency that it uses. The FCC does not require you to purchase licensing for that. And then another thing is this company, I actually got this contact from Casey Kohler over at the IU. And what kind of initiated that part was they're wanting to put a radio tower on our roof to support their system. So then I was thinking, you know, working with this company and then also getting buy-in from the IU, we could possibly, once they put that up, you could possibly get radios for our admin team and allowing them to communicate over the radio with the building while off campus. I just want to point out that this whole thing has nothing to do with the current purchases that we're looking to make. This would just be kind of a segue into that. And then the last option we have is obviously the cheapest, which would be keeping our current solution. We would have to at least get batteries for all the law enforcement radios because theirs are not really even lasting throughout the duration of the time that they're in class. And to replace all those would be $1,000 by itself. That's not replacing any parts and stuff that we would need for the other staff. And then we would continue with our current transmission struggles, you know, the static and all that good stuff. Could be an issue of safety, especially when it comes to the drills and at the time that it would not be a drill. That could definitely be a big deal. One thing that we could do to help with our current system is install a repeater. I got a rough estimate on that. They projected it would cost roughly $5,000. And then, you know, just one other thing we would have to do is put more holes in the roof, which I know the roof is a pretty hot topic right now. So I don't know if that's something that we're wanting to avoid, you know, just to kind of keep us going on with what we have. And then going with this solution is going to require the purchase of the FCC licensing. And what could be the biggest setback with this would be depending on the licensing, the range of the frequency that we get from the FCC, we might be forced into buying new radios anyways. So of the three, well, I guess 4 possible solutions, we're recommending the wireless and communications electronics solution because it gave us the best quality during our tests, and then also avoids us from having to renew FCC licensing, and then that is something that we would have to continue to purchase in the future too.
Now, when the IU would install an antenna, do they need to do that first before this system would work, or?
Right. So, like I said, it's that part is completely detached from this project. That would be kind of an add-on. So, no, the IU would not have to put in their antenna in order for us to use this system. This system would be an ad hoc system, and you know, would be completely independent of that.
How often does the FCC license need to be reviewed? Is that renewed? Is that yearly, every 2 years, every 5 years?
I believe that's every 10 years.
Every 10 years, okay.
Yeah.
So it's $2,000 every 10 years.
Yeah, and depending on the changing costs, I guess we could use that. Who knows what something's going to cost 10 years from now? But yeah, we could use that as a rough figure.
The different companies that you talk to that give you specific pricing for specific companies, do they each sell I mean, is that all they sell? Or like, for example, you said that you've used radioparts.com several times. Do they also sell the Motorola? Is there a way to compare the pricing of that specific unit from different companies to see if there's a difference in the price you would get from different companies offering that same radio?
Yeah, great question. So Discount Two-Way Radio did not offer, when I talked to them, they said that they didn't have the DTR 700. Radioparts.com did, but, and I did get a quote from them for that solution, but it did come in more than the wireless communications and electronics solution.
Thank you. Is this the same one that the IU is using? Because I know they just ordered some radios.
I don't believe, no, because the system that they're using allows for them to communicate across multiple campuses because they have kind of like a radio network where they bank off of different towers. So this solution that we're looking to purchase, like I said, it's independent of that, and it would be functional just on our campus alone.
I do know in my work, we had RCA radios at one point and they did not hold up well for us. And we ended up switching to Motorola radios. Certainly not this many, and they're all ad hoc, they just communicate one to the other. There's no centralized hub whatsoever for them.
Yeah, the RCA radios, they also did feel cheaper. Like just holding it in your hand, it just felt more plasticky than anything else. It was like it was pretty light, which is a benefit, but a lot of times the weight can help determine the quality of what's inside. So yeah, I mean, I agree. They just, like I said, when holding on to that model radio, like I said, it just felt cheaper.
And did Mr. Ritter weigh in too?
Yeah. So I talked with him, because obviously we're looking to replace the radios in his classroom. So I didn't want to just kind of pick a solution for him. He was on board. He wasn't like really all too picky, but he was comfortable with the Motorola ones because that's what they're using and that's what they're comfortable with using.
This might be a stretch, but did anyone look into the use of cell phones? And I'm talking
Yes.
about the push to talk feature that some cell phone carriers offer, and I don't know if that'd be a viable solution. I'm sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that so we didn't really look at that primarily because ask anybody who comes to our school, cell reception is next to non-existent in many locations.
Okay.
So that's like the biggest struggle when it comes to that. And then also, I guess, so coming from a cell phone company, we would probably also have to subscribe to some kind of plan that would allow us to communicate, and that would be a monthly cost. I think that would be significant in the keep up costs for that, specifically due to the having to have some kind of cellular data plan.
Yeah, Steve, I tried logging or just using my cell phone from the ag building and it didn't work. So as far as a safety standpoint, I think it's good to be able to have the teachers that are maybe in the barn or in the ag building to be able to communicate without the fear of not having enough of signal.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that actually. So thanks for reminding me.
Okay, and I just want to remind everybody that we wanted to use the funds that were left from the E-rate project. Like, we had saved a lot of money from that. That's kind of why we're hoping to be able to get it through this year. So
how much of that funding is left? Would it cover this entire project?
Yeah, what did we think? It came out to about $5,000 total, and we thought it was going to be, I don't remember now, 20. I mean, we had budgeted, I think 50. So we saved a lot. We wound up getting 70% of the cost reimbursed instead of only 50%.
Yeah, that was the big thing with the E-rate funding is we were awarded more than what we were anticipating.
Well, that's always good.
You ain't kidding.
And so with the new walkie-talkies, we will no longer have to have the FCC regulation stuff.
Correct.
All right, so it's extra $3,000, but it sounds like it's worth it.
Actually, if you factor in the cost of the FCC renewal, it's almost a wash. Because the other two plans, you would have to still pay that FCC licensing at some point. So you'd have to add $2,000 onto each of those. That's how I'm looking at it anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So is the committee okay recommending to go ahead and move forward with that purchase?
I'm all right with it. I think it is a safety issue, so I think it needs to be addressed.
I'm okay with
Yeah,
it.
we use them every day.
like the right solution to me.
Okay, and then, so for the rest of the meeting, we have a Job Ready grant that we talked about a little bit last month that we were approved. Now we're just waiting for the state to sign their agreement and send it over. They said that that could take up to 3 months. So hopefully by April, we'll actually get the signed contract and be able to make those purchases. We're still waiting for the supplemental grant to see if we were awarded that. And the GEER grant ends June 20th. So we spent most of that money. So it's like all earmarked, but we had a few things that were still outstanding. And then tonight we'll be doing the budget presentation, and next month for informational, Tracy is gonna talk about the HR software that we've been looking to get that will incorporate a lot of what she does instead of doing it by spreadsheets and papers, that we can have it all done automatically and it will go into the Infinite Visions accounting package. So, and then if anybody has any questions about the bills or any of the financials.
Yeah, we did just get some information actually today from the state saying that our application was accepted for the supplemental, but we don't know what the amount is. And I was on a regional call today with Lee Burkett, and the state's slow on releasing the funding dollar amounts to the schools. So we should know in a few weeks.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Hollowell?
Nothing from me, I think.
Okay.
We'll get into- We're 5 minutes late.
So then if nobody has any other questions, then that will be it for the Finance Committee.
I have no other questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to go right into the Policy as a Whole Committee?
Okay.
Okay, glad to be back. I hope everyone's staying nice and warm and toasty with this weather. Tonight we have on the agenda some policies that are going for second reading and adoption. That's extracurricular participation by home education students, standards for persistently dangerous schools, which we're not one of. One of the things that we do each year is present all of our Act 26 violations, which I think is great, and it's the best practice. And again, we're far from that. Standards for victims of violent crimes, along with our student service guidance plan. The main component of that is we need to have that available at the library. So does anyone have any questions on the second reading policies? Okay, hearing none. Their new policies are as follows. One of the things that we're trying to do with our policies is keep them updated. We know that PSBA, school law, they're constantly changing. So you're going to notice policy 103 is up. We already vetted the policy through committee, first reading, second reading, but there's a change of a student who was convicted of sexual assault. And basically the new school code is we will we'll coordinate with obviously the participating school, sending school, and comply with disciplinary or placement requirements established by the JOC. In these particular ones, I guess I want to ask the committee, would you still like to go through that 3 process, or would you like some recommendations to fast track certain ones? Okay. We'll make that recommendation. I think then we'll bring them right from committee. Trauma-informed approach is a.
Can you just go back to the one right before that?
Yes.
So I don't have any, I think this is, oh wait, I don't know if this is the right one. I was reading through so many policies today. Now I guess it was 144 actually. I was thinking it was this one. But I think it's 144. So I can wait till you go to that one.
Okay.
Which one it was.
I'm ready. Are you referring to the trauma-informed approach?
No, it was 144, I believe, actually. I just realized I was looking at the wrong one.
Oh, okay.
No, maybe, hold on, I'll pull it up. It was the one that basically, and I don't have any issues with the language. It just makes me feel like maybe we need an additional policy to prioritize, what actually happened. It was the policy that talks about if someone is a victim of some kind of assault. Go up, violent crimes. I thought it was 144, but maybe it's not. That one, right? Standards for victims of, no. I'm looking at it and it says no child left behind. I don't know if, I thought it was 144, standards for victims of crimes. It essentially the policy is saying that if there's someone who's a victim of a violent crime, then we have to allow them to switch to a different school, right? Isn't that what that policy is?
Yes.
Okay, so then that's the one. So my only concern, I don't have any issues with the policy and the wording, because I think if someone wants to switch schools, and obviously we would do that. But my concern is that I don't want that to be the standard. If someone is, I don't want us to be in the habit of I don't want our policy to kind of suggest that we should be punishing the victim and switching the victim to a different school as opposed to, the perpetrator.
Hey, it's Bridget. I'm just going to jump in real quick. I'm just wondering can you just refer which number we're looking at?
144.
I don't have that in board docs right now. I mean, I'm looking in the policy agenda and I don't see it, but.
You have to be on the drafts. Yeah.
Okay. So
it
was
on board docs earlier. It was attached to board docs earlier in our agenda.
That's where I'm at. But either way, this is the policy that is required now, Mike, and I'm just asking this clarifying question due to legislation that was recently passed. Is that correct?
No, there's two. The 144 is for second readings. This is for someone who was the victim of kidnapping, robbery, rape, sexual assault, etc. The one that you're referring to is the, the 103 that recently, through Act 110.
Okay, thank you.
Although, as it turns out, they're two sides of the same coin.
They are.
144 essentially allows a victim to make a choice about school placement. Act 110, now the new policy reflecting that, requires school districts to make placement decisions regarding perpetrators.
Yeah.
So Megan, it is, at least on 144, I don't believe the standard is to switch them. It allows them to have the choice to switch.
Yep. Right, so I think 144 is allowing them to switch if they want to, and that's why I'm saying I agree with that language, but I also don't want to added a policy, and I'd be happy to send that to the group to see how it compares to what we have in that area, but I think that we should have a policy in place that also talks about, what the standard should be, and that it should be it should not be the victim. If at all possible, the victim should not be the one who's being moved, unless that victim, unless the person wants to, right? But I just, I wanted to kind of highlight our responsibility to, put that on the other person.
Agreed, and thank you for that.
I haven't seen that in one of our policies yet, but I think that's something that we can cover in a different policy. But, you know, it's just if we only had this policy, I think it would give the impression that that's what we're going to do. We're going to move that person. You know what I mean? So, but I'll get a copy of that and send it to you, and then we can, you know, see how that compares to what policy we would be putting in place that covers that same topic.
Thank you. I would love to see that.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions on, so I guess trauma-informed approach, which is, it's a new policy. It's very detailed. It deals with students and staff with trauma. It's creating a safe therapeutic school community. It works in conjunction with our counselors, student management, and the teachers. I know Dr. Connell could mention to this, but it's a very comprehensive policy that addresses, I think, some of your points regarding about bullying and harassment, and you know, it includes that. So this is, does anyone have any questions on our trauma-informed approach policy? And this is in committee for discussion. Okay.
Is that another PDE requirement as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's
we also got a new policy for trauma informed from PSBA in Quakertown as well this year. So,
and that's coming from the Pennsylvania Commission, Crime and Delinquency, and you'll see the, you know, the level of commitment that the school district is, you know, needs to get involved with creating that, you know, positive climate for all involved. The next ones were vetted through our MVP, our wonderful school nurse with COVID, who's we appreciate and has done a great job, Mrs. Reinheimer. But so it deals with communicable diseases, communications of students, health services, which is important. And a lot of these were kind of in procedural in the handbooks. The recommendation from PSBA was to put them in policy. And so those were the changes. And then moving towards the end, the food allergy and diabetes management allows the school to create those personalized plans for students so that it doesn't impact their learning at the tech school. So I know we've covered a lot. Does anyone have any questions on these ones in committee?
So would that cover a student that, say, wants to eat only organic food? That would have to be provided? I mean, not necessarily diabetes, but food allergy? No.
Well, not as a matter of preference. Any student who, for whatever medical condition, had a Section 504 plan might have as part of that plan dietary accommodations.
Okay, well, I thank everyone. If not hearing any questions, then we will move these to a second reading, and the ones in committee will go to first reading next month, and they'll be published. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Herrera.
You're welcome.
So it's all quiet. Are we ready to move into an executive session, Bridget, or where are we at?
We can.
I'm still here. I'm just eating, so that's why my screen's turned off.
Yeah, because at this point, we just go to our regular meeting at 8 o'clock. So if the committee is ready to meet, or the JOC is ready to meet in executive session, that's fine to do now.
Okay. Is Dennis going to give us a breakout room then?
Yep, I'm getting that set up right now.
Thank you.
I'm eating as well.
Dennis, don't forget to stop recording as well, please.
Yep, thank you for the reminder.
What's for dinner that everybody's eating? I got to know. It's food. That's important to me.
I'm having a chicken salad.
That works.
So my wife does that Blue Apron, and this is like a steak and potatoes one. It's pretty good.
I like that too.
This is the same thing. I think this is Marla and me, or Marley and me.
Okay.
Dave, given your background, you just get a picnic basket.
Come on. That's not fair.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not bringing snow. Doesn't that count?
Well, that's why it's fair.
All right, I think all the invitations are out.
So we leave this one.
You should have gotten like a pop-up to join the breakout room.
Just got it.
Okay. All right, we're live again.
Okay. If everybody is present, we will begin the meeting of, what is today, the 18th, February 18th for the Upper Bucks County Tech School. And we'll begin with the salute to the flag. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
The flag of the United
States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, very good.
That is hard to do over a Zoom session, I'll tell you what.
Yeah. Next up is a roll call. Tracy?
Mr. Hallowell,
I am here.
Ms. Annis Clemens,
Here.
Mr. Spear,
Here.
Mr. Cormack,
Present.
Mr. Klein,
Here.
Mr. Akmatowicz,
Present.
Mr. Ott,
Here.
Mr. Rice,
I'm here.
Mr. Freeman.
Here.
You have 9 members.
Good. Next up would be recognition and comments from public on the agenda items. Do we have anybody?
Robert Linden.
Yes, sir.
I have a question on item 9, radio replacement. That says replacement, and it says 85 radios. So I assume that there's 85 old radios that you're going to dispose of.
So yeah, I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you've got 85 old radios, I would like to know if you're going to trade them in, or are you going to follow the policy committee? I mean, policy for purchases and disposal.
Yeah, so we will be obsoleting them. So we'll have to get the obsolescence approved by the board, and then I believe our supervisor of building and grounds, Bill Gerhardt, is getting things lined up for an auction type thing like we've done in the past. If not, we will just be disposing of them through a source that comes and picks up electronic equipment.
And I caught something in the finance committee meeting today, but I didn't get whether they had gone out for bid on this.
So we made sure that all of the bids that we got were using state PEPM pricing. So we did not have to go to an actual bid.
So you picked a preferred vendor and you decided not to go to bid.
Right. So I believe as long as the pricing that we're giving follows PEPM pricing, that we do not have to go to bid. And I also believe that the requirement is 3 quotes if we're not. So I may be wrong on this and might need further clarification, but I believe that as long as we have the 3 quotes that we got for this project, that is also sufficient.
That's all we do need for that amount of purchase, yes.
Did you obtain those?
Quotes, right?
Yes, I've got quotes from 3 different vendors.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there any other comment publicly? I don't see anybody. Anybody see anybody? Okay, we'll move on. The next item is the announcement of a executive session that was held prior to this meeting for personnel and legal matters. Next up would be the director's report. Mr. Sweda.
Thank you, Mr. Hallowell. First off, I'd like to start off by saying that our, is it too loud? That our new culinary instructor, Mr. Gersick, started with us 2 weeks ago. The first 3 days that he was assigned to come in. Of course, we had snow days, but we will be opening up the restaurant in the beginning of March. So we'll be sending out flyers to the JOC and all of our parents and sending districts. We'll be having carry out as well as our bakery. He will be offering SP2 national certifications for food safety, workplace safety, resume creation, interview skills, culinary industry, ethics. All students will complete these certs, and it's good for the PIMS data and Perkins data. And as a CIA graduate, we can now offer a $1,000 scholarship for students who plan to attend his alma mater, as long as they get a referral from Mr. Gersick. Next, I'd like to announce that Representative Craig Statz was named majority chairman of the Career and Technical Education Subcommittee of the House of Education Committee. Representative Statz is a huge proponent of Upper Bucks County Technical School. He's been in our building several times, and he'll be a great asset to the Education Committee. Then I'd like to say that we had a 3rd grade Springtown class joined Upper Bucks Baking Program via Zoom last week for a donuts to sweet start to the glazed finish lesson. The students had a Q&A with the high school students. It was a good relationship between 3rd graders and our high school students, and our students showed the 3rd graders the process of making donuts for, of course, Donut Day. And next I have, excuse me, Mr. G will be announcing the Student of the Month.
Okay, are we to that point?
Yes.
Okay, Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Sweda. Good evening. I'm Chris Gentileza, supervisor of CTE, principal at Upper Bucks County Technical School, and thank you all for joining us for tonight's virtual JOC meeting. It is my honor to present this month's Student of the Month, Abigail Jacobs. Abby has continued to go above and beyond the call of duty when it comes to taking care of the welding shop. Currently, she is the designated shop foreman and truly takes pride in completing her own tasks as well as making sure others hold up their end of the cleaning tasks. She has displayed great leadership traits and is always prepared when she enters the classroom. Abby was an honor student for the second marking period, and she currently has the highest overall grade for the PM welding class, excelling in both work ethic and knowledge categories. When Abby isn't in school welding, she spends some of her time working with her father doing plumbing and HVAC work and also looks after 2 horses. She has also been involved in the Skills USA metal sculpture competition in years past and has a love for TIG welding. It is clear that Abby has a great work ethic that has been instilled in her through her parents and the activities she participates in outside of school. Not only is she extremely talented with the hands-on portion, she also has the work ethic that employers seek and is an example of what a student at Upper Bucks County Technical School should represent. With that being said, Abby, and on behalf of myself, the administrative team, faculty, staff, and JOC, congratulations on being named the Student of the Month for February. Best of luck in your future endeavors, and we are so lucky to have you as a student here at Upper Bucks County Technical School.
Thank you.
Thank you. Abby, would you like to say a few words? I know that Mr. Kosak is also on the call with us as well, but I'll let you go first.
Hi.
We get that all the time. That's okay.
Hi. I really like being in the welding program, and it's an honor to be named Student of the Month. It's really an accomplishment, and I thank you very much for everybody who nominated me. It means a lot.
Thank you. Mr. Kosak, are you on the call at this time?
Yes, I am. I would just like to say a few words about Abby, a quick little story. A few days ago, I asked her about her involvement in the skills competition, and she lit up with joy, and she immediately began explaining her project to me and the different things about it. And she asked me, she said, Mr. Kozak, can I bring in that sculpture and work on it even though skills isn't going on this year? And whether she realized it or not, that one question says a ton about her work ethic. Abby's not someone that waits for work to come to her. She goes out and seeks it. Whether Abby decides to go with a co-op or enroll in a post-secondary welding school, I know I'll always hear great things about her. So Abby, this is just the beginning for you. Congratulations on your award.
Very good.
Well said, Mr. Kosak. And again, keep up the great work with you and your program as well. You're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, are we ready to get the next item, which is the updated 2021 calendar? I guess there's some.
Yes, sir.
But go ahead.
It's the updated, it's just our updated calendar. I don't know, I can't share my screen. It just, we have to make up a day at the end of the year right now.
The snow day on February 2nd.
It looks like the snow day on February 2nd was made up on February 18th, which was today. If I'm reading it correctly, there it goes.
Made up on the 16th. The sending districts made it up on the 16th on Tuesday.
So did you guys not have tech school on Tuesday?
No, they had a makeup day just like we did for the February 2nd day. That.
So hold on, I thought there was a day we have to make up for.
Well, obviously today, which isn't on here yet, but the bottom line is the last day for students is well, I lost it.
So we had a snow makeup day on the 16th. Is that what you're talking about? We had a snow day and then we made it up on the 16th. And then as far as I understand, the other days were asynchronous. They didn't need to be made up.
That's correct. We made up February 2nd was a snow day, and we made it up on February 16th.
So what do we got to do now?
Even though it's already happened, your official school calendar still requires JOC approval. So even though you can't really disapprove it since it already happened, it still requires.
Motion to approve.
No.
Second that.
Are we all in favor of the calendar change? I don't hear any negative response. Okay, we're good with that. I guess, Teresa, you're up.
Okay. Dennis, could you put the budget up, please? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Is everyone seeing the budget presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so tonight we're going to go over the 21-22 budget presentation for the tech school. And you can move on to the next page. Go ahead, you can keep going. I'll tell you slide. Jeff, do you want to go over the goals?
Sure. We're, Upper Bucks, we'd like to increase educational opportunities for our students and our community by continuing to implement, expand innovative programs here at Upper Bucks. Running summer STEM programs. Hopefully we will be able to do that this summer, depending on how the pandemic plays out. I'm optimistic. I'd like to get the summer camp back. I'd like to get our CTE camps back. The food truck experience is still going to be ongoing. We want to provide cost-effective instructional programs that lead to recognized certifications, post-secondary education, and high-wage careers. Our staff is adding certifications for their programs. I read off several certifications that our culinary instructor or culinary students will be receiving this year. To bolster school governance by establishing transparent, trusting, and collaborative relationships with all essential groups, and to provide competency-based and individualized curriculum based on valid occupational analysis. So we're on a right track, and we're following the POS, and we're improving our programs, and we have a goal of becoming the top school in the state. So it's a lofty goal, but we'll get there.
Okay, next slide. So to start the timeline with the budget, back in November, I've met with all the individual professional staff and the administration. We went over what each of their budgets requests were, compared them to what they look like, for this current year and what they wanted to move forward with for next year. February, I'm doing the presentation to the JOC. In March and April, I'll be doing the presentations to the sending districts. Actually, they're all scheduled right now for the beginning of March. And then in April, we'll come back to adopt the budget by the JOC. The member school districts will have to approve the recommended budget, and then the approved budget will get submitted to PDE in May or June. Next slide, please. So the budget, I have the three showing for the general fund, which is an 11,197,000. The capital fund, which was Fund 30, that is for 127,300. That is actually money that was left over from the bond renovations, and I would like to really spend that money out with the capital projects, and we'll have a slide over that, but pretty much clear that whole account out. So that money that's budgeted there is pretty much what's left from the bond money from the renovations. And then the food service budget, we'll have a presentation on that. So the general overview, we added this in so everybody kind of understands where we are. Right now we have the 10th Articles of Agreement, and it says how the sending schools have to vote in the majority for the approval of the budget. Our projected revenue, well, the Act 1 index for the 2021 school year will be a 3%, and it was 2.6% for the 2021 school year. The total projected revenue is going to be $9,338,000, and that's an increase in revenue of $197,000 over this current year's budget. And then our projected expenditures are going to be $11,197,194, which is a decrease of the $570,000, but that is taken into consideration that we had the $800,000 ag building renovation in there. So if we remove that piece from the formula, since that was a one-time use, it's actually a $45,000 increase, which is a 0.41% increase over last year's budget. So as you can tell, the projected revenues is less than the expenditures. So we've been running budgeting shortfalls every year. This year, for the 21-22, we are looking at a $566,000 difference in the revenues and expenditures. And in prior years, we've also had those. Next slide, please. This is kind of like the background of how we've been calculating the operating revenue. I guess I should say this. Does anybody have any questions first before I kind of blow through all of this? No? Okay. So the annual contributions, we came up with a formula that the contributions will be increased by adding the Act 1 index to the prior year's contribution. So whatever revenue that the school sent this year, it'll be the Act 1 index added to that. And then we also add in any prior year overages or shortfalls noted in the financial statements. And then that's incorporated into the budget calculation. So in the 19-20 shortage increases the 21-22 budget by the $24,000, and we will see that on slide 10 as we move forward. Go ahead, Dennis. So the revenue will be the 7.6 million plus the shortfall from the prior year of the 24,000 plus the Act 1 index, and then that's what the sending district's contributions will be. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that? No? Okay. So the tech school receives fundings from federal, state, and local sources. Our federal funding is basically the Perkins grant. The state funding comes from our subsidy, which is the Voc Ed subsidy. We get a Social Security subsidy, PSERS, and then some other grants. But the largest portion of is from local revenue from the member districts. So as per the 10th Articles of Agreement, the member districts share the cost of the operating based on the 5-year average. So for budgeting purposes, the 5-year average is calculated using 4 years of the actual ADMs plus the October 1st PIMS snapshot number. And then the increase for the contributions for each of the schools will either increase or decrease based not only on the increase of the revenue that we're asking for, but kind of by the 5-year average percentage. And you'll see that a little bit on slide 13. So
I did have a question on this one.
okay.
How accurate has this PIMS snapshot been when you, I guess, reconcile that toward the end of the year going into next budget? And if it isn't accurate, are those funds made up or reconciled?
So the adjustment comes forward. I don't think there's that too much movement from the October 1st PIMS snapshot. That's pretty much what's used through all school districts to do the reporting to the state. So everybody uses that number. That's kind of why we went with that. But then, I'm sorry, so what was the second part of that question?
How accurate has it been? And then if there is discrepancies on that, are they made up then? I guess they get swallowed up in the next cycle of the 5-year
yes,
cycle.
Right.
Enrollment.
So then, and I'll just make up. So say this year it was 100 and then it wound up being 90, then the 90 becomes the actual and then it's kind of readjusted through the 5-year average. Does that make sense? Can you go to slide 12 real quick? So as you can see, like the projected, when we first had all the kids coming in, the October 1st date for Palisades was the 66 and Penn Ridge was 311 and Quakertown was the 338. Now, depending on what's really happening, especially this year with COVID, so I really can't say how many kids are going to be there or have come and gone. So as those numbers move, they will become, at the end of the year, we'll have another final report to PDE that becomes the actual. So, I mean, the actuals do get used, but for projection for the 5-year average, it's just based on that October 1st. Because we could fluctuate, I mean, you know, attendance could fluctuate in and out all the time. So it's like you have to just kind of pick a hard date to kind of stick with.
Or I guess you could just do the 5 based upon the 5 previous years, the 5 previous complete years and do the calculation that way. I'm not sure.
6 of one, half done the other.
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Can you go back one slide then, please? 10. Okay, so the other revenue you'll see is based on a decrease due to the bringing down of the interest revenue, because that did come down a little bit. Hold on, Dennis. Now you're good on a slide 11 there. And then the other revenue also was reduced because of the equipment grant revenue. We did not get the supplemental or the matching grant this year. So we did remove that. The state has said that we might not be getting as many grants. So I did reduce the grants, but then on the other hand, I reduced the expenditures to match that. So if you go to 12, that'll show you how the contributions are made. And that's where the 5-year average comes from. Does anybody else have any other questions about that piece? No? Okay, slide 13, please. So for the budget for this year, underneath each of the schools' name is the percentage that we're using for their participation and what their percentage is. Hold on, I have to move you guys over to the other side of my screen there so that you can see the increase and the decrease between the schools. So because there's a decrease for Palisades is based on what their enrollment number has been for going forward for next year. And it's same, so Penridge actually had an increase in their ADMs, their 5-year average. So that's where you're seeing that their increase is a lot higher than Quakertown and Palisades. And then for the other revenue, that's where you see the decrease, and that's the reduction of some interest money and removing some grants out of there. Any questions on that one? Okay, next slide, please. So the assumptions that we've made for was the budget to budget and some other assumptions. So for the salaries and benefits, basically we have contracts going through negotiations this year. We've added an additional special ed teacher was added. And then you'll notice that there's an increase in tuition costs due to new teachers working towards their VOC 1s and VOC 2 certifications. There was an increase in the overall objectives for the professional service, and that was basically, there was a decrease for the professional development. Since we have most trainings right now happening virtually, we're not really spending for travel and other, the costs have come down for that. Where we do have, it is a decrease because of fuel costs and meals. Again, because the functions are being held virtually, we're not having the OAC come in, we're not having the GAC come in. Obviously, we're not there tonight to be fed either. So all those costs are coming down for the meals. But there is definitely an increase in the supplies for the software and books. A lot of our classes now are starting to use software where we didn't have our online textbooks and stuff like that. So we are seeing those costs going up. For the equipment, we had a decrease from the prior year, and that's basically because we received a $200,000 grant this year, and we're able to purchase a lot of the pieces of equipment from both this current year and some requests for next year. What we do still have budgeted in there though, we have $22,000 towards technology, which I believe are towards switches, a mower that needs to be replaced for the maintenance, and then educational shops, we have $100,000. So, and then that money is kind of earmarked because we're looking for a walk-in freezer we're having some trouble with in the culinary program. And then there's also a diesel LMS, I guess it's called, Jeff. I'm not really sure what that piece of equipment is.
It's a trainer that the students will be able to take apart, put back together, and actually turn the key, and it'll start. So it's going to satisfy, I believe, 8 to 10 different tasks on the programs of study. So, we're hoping, we're crossing our fingers that we have that coming in.
Okay, and then dues and certifications, that has increased because different memberships that we're trying to get for the students for certifications. So that's where most of the big changes are coming from that you'll see and be noted. Next slide, please. This slide just kind of shows you where the percentages of our current budget are. So I think we fall pretty close to the other schools, the sending schools, with their wage and benefits percentages added together. Debt service is what it is. There's really not a lot we can do with the fluctuation of that. That just kind of stays where that is. So next slide. Okay, so for the salary and benefits, we have an increase overall. And sorry, I have to keep moving my little screen here of everybody's faces. Here we go. For the overall salaries, is a 1.3% increase, and benefits, we have a 4.2. The professional development, again, that's where you'll see that decrease coming in. We're just not sending as many people out. And then we did remove the architect and engineering costs from the previous year. Does anybody have questions on any of that? Okay, next slide. Our repairs and rentals, that's pretty much staying the same as we had for the current year's budget. Our insurances, we did not have a significant increase along those. We did save a little bit money last year with combining our auto with our liability. So, you know, that really didn't go up too much. And I mean, we're pretty consistent throughout the whole thing. The travel for the staff and students, we are going to save because, again, we're not traveling very much anymore. So I did have to leave money in there though for the skills and for, I guess the NOCD travel in there, because we do help support some of that, and the FA budget, we do help support the kids when they go to those things.
So is there talk of still having a live skills challenge this year then?
Well, so I've budgeted for it for next year because that's the 21-22, and I really don't know, but I've budgeted for it in case things do come back. So obviously if they don't, then, you know, as you can see in the 19-20, we really didn't spend that much because we didn't go to those in the spring. So Jeff can kind of, I guess, I don't know what they're doing for skills.
This year, the skills aren't, we're not having skills this year because of the COVID, but they are doing some virtual stuff. We just had a meeting this morning. We're going to be trying to get our seniors and the officers together at the venue to give them some type of a celebration. And I think we mentioned NOCD prior to that as well. NOCD, we are going to have our NOCD tests this year. We're looking forward to them since we've been in school since September 2nd. So you know, we're moving ahead with that as well.
Well, if they do have an online type of skills challenge, be sure to share that with us. I'd like to see Abby's statue, or Abby's welding sculpture that she's making.
Absolutely.
So again, as you can see, where the supplies, the books, and the software, there was a 13.2% increase there. Again, you know, because of COVID, you're not allowed to share a lot of the textbooks. Some of the teachers have gone online, so obviously they can teach offline. So we're going to be looking to increase that. We did receive a lot of grants this current year to help purchase some of that stuff. So, you know, some of them had a 3-year subscription and some had 5, but then there's others that we're going to have to, you know, start looking at. Jeff and I are talking about going and doing it through clusters, and that way it's not hitting all at the same time. It'll be kind of evened out then throughout the different years. There's 5 clusters, and over a 5-year period, we'll try to get everybody updated with that kind of stuff. For the oil and propane diesel, compared to what the actual was for the budget from that year, I did drop it down some there. And again, meals and refreshments, we are seeing a decrease in those costs. Okay, next slide. The equipment, that's where I had said about dropping that down because of this grant that we received. So we should be good there. The dues and certifications, that is for the kids getting their certs. So, I mean, it looks like a huge increase, but dollar amount, it's really not that much. And then for the prior year refunds, interfund transfers, that's the $65,000 I have to be transferred for towards the food service costs. We did transferred last year, if you recall, $97,000. This year for the 2021 budget, I didn't really have it broken out. I actually had in that $200,000, I had the $65,000 kind of in the budgetary reserve, but I figured it was better to break it out so that you guys actually can see and recall what we're doing with that money. There is nothing for the ag building renovation. And then the debt service is listed, and then the budgetary reserve. So the overall budget, again, it's showing a negative percentage, but the overall percentage, once you remove that $800,000, is a 0.41% increase. Do we have any questions up to there? Okay, so debt service, right now there are 2 bonds that we have out. It's the series 2014 and 2015. The way the capital was currently done and the debt service was figured out was based on the STEB value. And we'll see that on slide 20. And then you'll see that Palisades has 0 there. They have prepaid their portion, and Penridge and Quakertown are the ones that are making debt service payments at this point. So you can go to the next slide. So all those market values come off of the DCED government website, and they tell us our values for each of the school districts. And then that shows you what the breakdown will be for the debt service. Okay. Go to the next slide. And then that is the increase, you know, for the debt payments for each of the schools based on that percentage. Any questions for this? Okay, thank you. So the overall proposed operating budget is $9,905,438. We add the debt service to that, and then that comes up with the general funds expenditures. And then I take off the sending schools contributions, we less out their debt payments, and then the other projected revenue. So the amount that we would need to balance the budget would be the $566,000. Any questions on that? Okay. So then when we come to fund balance, the articles tell us how we're supposed to maintain a surplus not more than 8% of the expenditures for the general fund. That's there for any emergencies that come up. And then, so in the 2021 budget, we had budgeted $800,000 of fund balance to be allocated for the ag building. And then also to reduce member contribution spikes for major improvements or technologies and new programs, we have money that's assigned of our fund balance. And we'll see that on slide 24. But go ahead. So our fund balance at the end of last fiscal year was 2.6 million. We said we were going to use 800,000 towards the renovations. And then we have assigned $500,000 for capital projects, $166,000 towards maintenance and technology, and $315,000 for future programs. So that leaves us to have an unassigned fund balance. We're projecting for the end of the school year to be $895,000, which is just shy of the 8%. Any questions on that? No? Okay. So this is just an example for future planning, because as everyone knows, we do have SiteLogic out there. They're doing their reports. They've been out on grounds. They did walk through the building with Jeff yesterday. So we're working towards getting that. So this is just, I'm not quite sure. I just want to make sure all the sending schools are knowing what is coming down the road. So the roof is definitely something that's going to have to be done at some point. And then when Dewey engineers came in and they did the repair and coating, they gave us an estimate. They broke it down into 2 different payments that we could to do it in like 2 years or 2 different times. So this is just broken down at what the contributions would look like using the calculated ADMs. And that is based on what happens with the new articles of agreement, because otherwise it's based on the step value. So I just showed this using the current ADMs, which is, I think, what you guys are going to be working towards getting the articles approved to do.
So just to clarify, because there's 3 different pieces here, right?
Yes.
There's what the Articles of Agreement says, right? Which is what you're saying is that if we went by the language in the Articles of Agreement, it would go by the STEB formula because it falls under the 400s category. Then there's how the Articles of Agreement has been interpreted over time. And over time, it would not have applied to this because it was seen as extraordinary 400s, which was renovations, additions, things that were essentially financed in most cases. And so there was the battle between what's here and what's interpreted and which one should actually be followed, in addition to the fact that we're changing it and absorbing it into the other formula. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that piece.
Right. So yeah, but I just wanted to make sure that, you guys, I don't want anybody to be surprised when it's coming down the road, some of these, because they are significant dollar amounts.
But now an additional program startup wouldn't fall under that, correct?
Well,
that
no,
would have
so
always been under the ADM.
Right.
Yes, that is correct. Yep. But I just wanted to kind of put that part out there too, because if we're talking about doing new programs for the next year, I just wanted to give you an idea of what might be in next year's budget. Like it might not be both those roof pieces. Maybe it's the annex and the additional program, or maybe we don't need the roof done next year at all and it's just the additional program, or so just an idea of what's coming. And again, we won't really know until that site logic report is done, and then that will go through the facilities committee, and they'll kind of give that direction of what is the priorities then.
Mr. Sueda, have you gotten any kind of feedback from them yet on their perspective, at least of the roof piece? Have they shared anything with you?
No, they came out yesterday, did a walkthrough. One of the engineers came, and now that we have snow on the roof, we had someone go up on the roof a few weeks ago. They took some pictures, but it's a long process. And I just got off the phone with Jeff earlier today from SiteLogics, and they're going to try to put something together for our next meeting next month, because they're still going to send in professional tradespeople. I showed them all of our mechanical rooms. They have all of our prints. So they have the information that we had from Dewey and everything that we've accomplished in the last couple of months. They have that information now. So they're just trying to put a package together. So they really haven't come back and give me much of anything yet, but we've only started the process a few weeks ago, and the weather's not cooperating now.
It'll be interesting to see what their perspective is of the roof, because there was some insurance, some pieces about warranty and all of that in the discussion, and I'll be interested to see if they have similar opinions or not.
But now, if they come up with replacing, sink faucets like that one in the men's room near the JOC that's loose, and they say that needs to be replaced, that doesn't get put into those capital 400 projects. That's a standard maintenance item, not a capital project, correct?
Correct.
but
Yeah.
that may all show up on their same report too. So we shouldn't get the sticker shock of seeing a report with a large number that also has replacing light fixtures and general maintenance items on top of the capital projects that will most likely be included in there too.
Right. I mean, that'll go through like the whole facilities committee should, they'll look through that and help determine where things are going to go and what priorities are then too. Okay, any other questions on this slide? Okay. Next, please. Okay, so here is the capital fund. So again, this was the proceeds of the bonds, and specifically written in that bond, it said that it would be used to acquire, design, construct, renovate, and do additions to the existing facilities. So there is $127,300 in there. So whatever comes back from that report, I would like to be able to use this money to help clear that bank account out and, do away with our Fund 30. So we do have some money saved for some of those capital projects that come through. Any questions on that? Okay. Next, please. So the food service is a separate fund from the general fund. It typically, students from Palisades and Penn Ridge utilize the service. There are a few from Quakertown that do. Over the past few years, the fund has not generated enough revenue to cover its expenses, and there's been a need for the general fund to make transfers to the food service fund. In the 1920 school year, $97,000 was transferred, and there hadn't been a transfer, I think it was in 15-16 was the last time a transfer had been made. So that was a couple years worth of losses for that. So, and again, unfortunately, COVID has placed additional stress on the food service program. And now, like as of, the 22nd, Penn Ridge will not be having as many of their students eating lunch in the cafeteria at the tech school. You can go to the next slide. Basically, I did build the budget though, based on thinking that we will be back in school and rolling as normal for next school year. So I, listed all the sales and the vending and everything that we hope to go back to being able to do for next school year. And then I also showed in there the general fund transfer. So in this budget, which I did not show last year, which I should have shown in there for that revenue. Okay, next slide. And then, again, these are the salaries based on, if everything goes, and the food and the milk and everything is basically kind of the same. And as you can see, the actuals for last year, when you get down to like the supplies and the food, the milk, the donated commodities was the same. But if you recall, as of March, we stopped coming into school. So that's why that was so low for the actual there. So that's basically for food service. Now, right now there's 350 students that we feed. I think we're going to start feeding an estimated 70 to 100 come February 22nd. So again, for the 2021 budget, there's going to be about a $28,000 loss in revenue that we'll be seeing from that change too.
And have you been utilizing that lower cafeteria area that was originally designated for the social distancing? Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't need to use that going forward next week.
Right. Yep.
We may need to, depends on what happens next year as far as the pandemic. We may need to utilize that again as well. keep our social distancing.
Is there any questions for that? Any more? No? So does anybody have any other questions for me or?
I don't really have a question, just kind of a comment that I wanted to put on people's radar so that we can talk about, what everybody's comfortable with as far as what our budget is compared to how much our districts are paying towards the budget, because you had highlighted at a prior slide, I forget which slide number, but you highlighted the fact that there was still a shortfall that we were pulling from fund balance. And so, for our newer board members who haven't been here in prior discussions, that was what was, in the past, there was a lot of money getting pulled from fund balance, and then that was being applied to the budget. And we're trying to get away from that, which is why you saw that the district increases. I think Teresa had put in there that we would raise that by Act 1 this year to get closer to breaking even with the budget, to be fully funding and not pulling from fund balance. But we can always increase that to make that happen faster. So that's a decision should be on our radar going forward, is whether, how many years do you want to take until you get to a point where, the school districts are funding 100% of the budget and not pulling from fund balance. You saw the impact on fund balance, and I think right now we're okay, and maybe the Act 1 increase each year, in a couple years will get us pretty close. Do you have a sense for, if we did the Act 1 index over the next several years, do you know when we would get to a point where we break even with that method?
I really have not played with those numbers to make that answer on the fly like that. But what I can say is, Dennis, can you get a slide 22 there that shows the amount needed?
Wouldn't future employment contracts are going to play into that moving forward too?
Yeah, and there's a lot right now, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty with COVID, what the costs are going to be. There's just a lot of uncertainty this year. But the amount there needed to balance the budget. So if we're using the formula, if that money really, that's not necessarily coming out of fund balance now, that's actually being built into the subsequent year's budget. So if that really came in at, we'll say $400,000 instead of the 566, that actually gets built in once the audit is finished. That'll be down for the 2 years down the road, 22, 23, 23, 24. You'll see that number coming up then.
Well,
It's kind of how it happened with the $24,000 that was from the 1920 budget. That's built in now to the 21-22 budget. Does anybody have any questions about that still?
Well, just what you're saying is it's all, whatever we're projecting, right? If we end up, projecting higher than what the actuals end up being, you're saying that what's left over would offset what we'd be pulling from fund balance.
Well, actually, we're not pulling anything from fund balance. Whatever that number is, whatever the shortage or overage is being built into the budget. Let me see what page that's on.
Well, this is a little different than we handle in our home schools, because at least I understand, we have to budget a balanced budget, expenditure budget, so it has to show the revenue coming from somewhere. I think it's going to be a paper number at this point, but that 566 will have to show up on the revenue side somehow to balance the budget.
Right. So then if you go back to page 10, sorry, Dennis, you're going to be flipping all over now. So right where it says here what your, your revenue shortage will be, instead of being the 1920, if there was a shortage in the 21-22 year, you'll see that plugged in there in the 21-22. I think it's the 23-24 budget. So basically, you guys are going to always either be like catching up to get it to where it's finally the revenues that you're sending is equal to what the expenditures are.
So how, Jim, I believe how we can say in the sending districts that part of our shortfall is going to come from our fund balance, the JOC or the tech school can essentially say our fund balance can be made up from our sending districts at any time, correct?
It can be, yes.
No,
Well,
I mean,
true,
is that
but-
why this is able to be done?
No, this doesn't impact the fund balance at all. All it's doing is kicking your shortage, if you have one, 2 years down the road, and then each sending district will have to increase its contribution to cover the shortage from 2 years prior.
No, that's what I was saying. So what I'm saying is, the way we do it at our home school is we would, to balance our budget, we would say we're taking from our fund balance. But in a sense here, the tech school can say, we have the financial backing of the sending districts, and that's what will make up our shortfalls, the sending districts in 2 years.
I guess the point is the $24,000 had to get used from somewhere, right? Where we can't borrow it from ourselves 2 years from now. So we spent the money out of fund balance, then we're putting it back in through a subsequent budget. But the money has to get spent from somewhere. It doesn't, we can't just say, hey, I'm writing you a check with money from 2 years from now. So that was kind of the point. It's coming from fund balance, then we're putting it back in.
I think that's exactly what Mr. Khan just said. Yes, no?
Both statements are equally true. I mean, it actually goes to what you said, Mr. Hallowell, which is some of this is how we put it down on paper for budget purposes.
Yeah, just like a big chunk of the food service loss is depreciation on equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, is there any other questions? Comments? Okay.
Good job. There's a comment.
Thank you, Teresa.
Okay.
Teresa put a lot of hard work in putting the presentation together for the last few months, working with the three sending district business managers. It's a tall task, but coming in at 0.41%, I think we're doing the things the right way here. So again, thanks Teresa and Tracy and the whole team for pitching in and making this happen.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
Awesome job. Thank you.
Are we ready to move on? Okay, subcommittee reports. I guess we could just say as an aside or whatever that it sounds like everybody's agreeable to have the second Tuesday of the month be the day or evening for the subcommittees to meet. And we would like to start that in March. Now that will be the finance, the facilities.
When you say everyone's agreeable,
I was not able to do that.
yeah, I don't think we've even decided whether we want to switch it to another month or another week. I think we need to decide whether or not we want to have a separate committee meeting night or not.
Well, then
So I think we kind of still need to pull the board on that. I think it was an idea that was thrown out, but the JOC has never actually weighed in.
Yeah, I know we did do a survey, a basic survey, but the second Tuesday did not work for that's the night we have our Upper Bucks Planning Committee meetings, for which the school district is a part of, and I am the representative to. Yeah, that's what, at least what I came up with, and I don't believe that one could be changed on our side.
Okay, I was under the impression that Dr. O'Connell had sent a questionnaire out and the majority, I don't know how many, most of the JOC members felt that the second Tuesday was available. I don't know if that's changed.
I think you're confusing. Dr. O'Connell sent out a survey about us meeting with the IU, and then she got a date from that. I think maybe you're confusing the two because she didn't send out a survey for this.
There was also a survey about what night we could have our articles meeting, our next articles meeting too.
Okay, well then I'm confused. So I think we need to talk about this because I would like to see the committees meet on a separate night than the JOC meeting, if only to get items, questions answered before the JOC, so we don't spend, 2 hours answering questions that could have been answered prior. If you follow. So
Can we poll the JOC members and see who wants it on one night and who wants it on a separate night? Because I think that's the first piece to figure out.
okay. Anybody, how many? Let's hear who cannot meet on the second Tuesday.
Well, that wasn't the question. The question is who wants a separate committee night or who wants to leave it the same?
All right, well then let's answer that first. Who would like to see a separate night for committee meetings? Mr. Ott?
I would, yes.
So Mr. Ott and myself are the only ones? All right. Are we sure on that?
I mean, ultimately, I could agree only if it worked out for everyone, which might be still tough. I mean, we never did do an official survey to see which day would work.
But is there a point in doing a survey if 7 board members prefer to leave it the way it is?
No.
All right. I get the sense of the JOC that we'll leave it all on one night. Is that correct?
That would be my preference. However, with the caveat that we go back to the 7 p.m. starting time for the main meeting.
So you would want to start the committees 2 hours before that?
If necessary, sure.
I think the problem is that we have several board members who work and can't get there till 5:30, which is kind of what made us push this back so that we could have the committee meetings before the JOC meeting, which is how we ended up with the 8 o'clock start time. So that's kind of the difficulty.
Well, I think if you went with 7:30 meetings, you can go to 5:30 start time. If 5:30 seems to be that cutoff, at least that'll get us a half an hour earlier.
Okay, well, we'll have to limit our discussions a little bit on the committees for sure, and not expect to have answers to questions brought up at the committee meeting before the JOC meeting. I mean, there's just isn't time for that.
Well, I think a lot of times it helps to have some of the stuff that's presented in the committee meeting to then vote on it the following month.
Well, yes, that's correct. That's exactly what will happen. So we'll have some discussion before the JOC, and then there won't be any action on it for another month. And if that's what folks want, I don't think that's a good way to go, because there are some items that we will want to act on sooner.
I think some items we could act on the same day. Items that don't require much research or have been discussed at previous meetings.
Okay, as long as everybody understands that. I'm going to try my best to get us out of here by 9 o'clock. I didn't make it today, so I don't we're going to have to limit our discussions to be able to do that. Okay, let's move on. Sounds like we'll keep the current situation the way it is. Do we have any more information from the Facilities Committee? It didn't meet. And then next is the Finance Committee. Anybody wish to add anything more that was discussed there?
Also, for that, we just discussed the radio purchases for the campus-wide radios.
And that is on the agenda for this evening?
No?
No.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yes, it is.
All right. Nobody else have any other facilities questions? The next would be, I can't find it now. The policy committee met. There are some items on the agenda for that. Does anybody want a summary on that?
The UPCTS policy as a whole committee reviewed, discussed, and endorsed moving policies listed on tonight's agenda for final approval. We also moved, the committee also moved the policies that were listed in committee to be moved to first reading next month. Ms. Banis Clemens will forward us a policy for review before the next meeting, and that ends my summary of the policy as a committee whole meeting.
Does anybody have anything to add or question? Okay, the program committee did not meet. And the last committee topic would be the 11th amendment to the articles. What would we like to discuss?
Okay, so just to kind of share some of the clarifications in the Articles of Agreement amendment that we're going to be sending to the sending districts. One of the clarifications had to do with the language in Article 3 that talks about the JOC essentially setting the terms for a joint board meeting. So that was kind of changed back to the joint board having that discretion and having the final say. Article 5C, there was some clarification regarding the process that we use to switch treasurers, because we're required to switch in July. And you know, we adjust the rotation and have someone switch out in December. We have someone switch out in December and then have someone else finish that term. So we essentially kind of make it so that the rotation lines up so that there's so that the 3 leadership positions are from 3 different districts, and we can switch those out at the same reorganization time period. And the last thing that I just wanted to share, the main discussion that we had at our committee meeting had to do with clarification of the reconciliation of the budget. And the language in the current agreement says that it would be reconciled with the ADMs from the ADM from the last fiscal year. And we had talked about, Teresa had brought up last meeting that we actually use the 5-year average of the last fiscal year. So we were switching it from 1 year to 5 years. And so, we had discussion, everybody agreed that it should be 5 years, not one. That's what we do. So we wouldn't then reconcile it with a 1 year number when we use a 5 year average. But as the language was then put out, we realized there's two interpretations of what the end result of that is. And so I don't know if Tracy or Teresa can someone pull up those two different, that Word document with those two different options for wording on the screen so everyone can look at them?
It's the document called Article 9C option.
Okay, so basically there's two different ways of looking at this. The language was essentially changed to say that we would be using, that it would just roll over. So if there was an overpayment or an underpayment, that would basically just roll over into the next budget, right? But the problem is if you're reconciling that, then what you're doing is you're taking the 5 year average from last year, from the last fiscal year, right? And you're reconciling that with the 5 year average of the following fiscal year. So you're using two different numbers to reconcile that same budget. And so what we're trying to figure out here is, was the intention for that to roll over into the budget, and then you're reconciling last year's budget numbers with the following year's percentages? Or was the intention, which I think was the intention of the original way it was written, to use the 5 year rolling ADM of the prior fiscal year? And you can either use the numbers you used at the beginning of the year, which, as Teresa pointed out in that slide, has an estimated number in for October 1st for year 5. I think that what they were trying to do was reconcile it with that actual number, because when you get the actuals in of your budget, you actually have the actual number for that ADM for that year too. So you really have to figure out, do you want to use the same 5 year average you used at the beginning of the year to reconcile those numbers? Do you want to use the actual after you know what the enrollment has been by the end of the year? Or do you want to roll it over into the next budget year and reconcile that with the following year's ADM? So an easy way to think about this is, if you overpay in the budget, let's say we budget and we have a significant overpayment, right? That your portion of that may not all come back to you the following year, because this isn't just this is actually a significant difference. So I think that the JOC needs to weigh in, because we need to make sure that the language says what the JOC wants it to say, so that after this is passed, there isn't a debate about what it should have said and what people wanted, what people thought it meant. And I mean, the same thing would be true if there's a deficit, right? If there's an underpayment from one district, the following year, someone else could be picking up a higher portion of that because the formula has changed at that point. So that's kind of, that's what I'm asking for. I want an idea from the JOC. So the first set of language: upon completion of the annual local auditor's report, refunds of overpayment or payment for shortfalls will be incorporated into the budget formula for the subsequent fiscal year based on the same ADM shares upon which the completed year was budgeted. And the rest is the same. I'm not going to read that part. Upon completion of the annual local auditor's report, refunds of overpayment or payment of shortfalls will be incorporated into the budget formula set out in paragraph 9B. So essentially, it would roll into the next year's budget and be based on the 5 year ADM for that following year. And so what would impact this is if you have a significant change of enrollment, if there's a significant shortfall, or if there's a significant overpayment. So in years past, sometimes there were significant overpayments that were then getting circulated back in to replenish fund balance. If that were happening, that swing could end up being a difference, a major difference. But in many years, it's not going to be much of a difference. So it may or may not, but I want to get a sense from board members on whether or not you think it should be reconciled with the same numbers you used, or with the same year at least that you used to generate that budget to begin with, or whether you want to reconcile it with different numbers the following year.
I could give you a little history on this. I think this goes back to when the tech school could not have a fund balance, when every dollar in whatever form came from the sending schools based on mostly the ADM formula. And what would happen was when the audit was completed in November or December, you got those numbers, and any difference was made up by the end of that current year that the audit was released for the previous year. Once we got the ability to have a fund balance at the tech school, things sort of ballooned, or however you want to say it, got out of hand. What is being proposed here, any change here is whatever the JOC and the joint board want to do. I mean, how you want to do it is how you want to do it. We really don't have to look at how it was done in the past, because that was the past. So the question is, how or what do you do about any differences between the budgeted amounts from the sending schools, which are what is sent to the sending schools, and what are the actual numbers? So in my opinion, that's the question, in whatever way you want to put it.
Well, I guess what you're looking for here too is clarity. So if it's established in the articles and it's more set than what that answer would be every year, and it wouldn't be a matter of opinion. It wouldn't change with different JOCs coming and going either. It would stay consistent then. So I guess looking to clean up the language or add the language and make it a static choice, or a static policy instead of a choice that we would make. Is that what we're looking? Is that what you're looking for?
We want to make it specific, but we want to make sure that the specificity matches what people actually want, because these are specifically different. So we want to go in the right direction and make sure that everyone is on the same page about the way you want this, about how you want this to be done. So do you want to reconcile the budget, the actuals, with the same number you budget, the same percentages you budgeted with in the first place? Or do you want to reconcile those numbers based on completely new numbers the following year? If your budget ends up being perfect, you then have to reconcile them with a new ADM the following year, because it's different than, the one that you used in the first place. Well, so I guess we're just looking for whether, because then I'll have a sub question, but the first question, to not confuse everyone, current year or following year? Who wants to use the same year to reconcile the budget that you used when you created the budget in the first place?
Well,
same year.
What kind of headaches will this bring to Teresa? Either option.
It's not going to bring any headaches, but she needs to know which one she's doing so that it's done, so that the language can be correct in the Articles of Agreement. But board members need to just weigh in. So if you want it reconciled with the same fiscal year, who wants that option?
Sure, why not? Doesn't make any difference.
Okay, that would be my vote. So that's 2. Anybody else want it reconciled with the same year you budgeted?
But now I'm not sure which one you're asking for. So option 1 is, the first option listed there is you're going to use the same shares as when it was budgeted. So who?
Well, hold on. Don't be that specific, because you're going to ruin my sub question. Do you want to reconcile the budget with the same fiscal year that you budgeted for?
It's not the year. You can't do that.
Well,
It's the
yeah,
shares.
because David, the next question is going to be, do you want to use that October number where it was projected, or do you want to use that actual number? Because that's another question that they're going to have to decide.
Well,
David,
okay, we are going to need Teresa's input here.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear what Teresa.
Because the fixed
is
date for reconciliation is the completion, and it's actually 2 years out, is the completion of the audit. Like you can't change
Okay,
that
then
date.
never mind. Then forget. Okay, then go back to the original. Then go back to your original point. I thought you were saying before that that's what you thought the. I thought you were saying before that that's what you thought they were intending to do in the first place. Never mind.
What I thought they were intending to do in the first place is what is on that sheet as option 1, the first paragraph. I thought they were keeping the shares the same when they did reconciliation as when they did the budget.
Right.
And Teresa has corrected me that in fact, what has happened the last 2 years is that the reconciliation has been based on the shares of each sending district at the time the reconciliation is computed, not when the budget was made.
So the following year.
Actually, 2 years, but yes.
2 years later. Okay. So so the first option is use the same percentages you used to budget it in the first place, same fiscal year.
Yes.
Well, can I hear
Yes,
what Teresa has, what her input is first? Like, would it be possible, or are we asking something that would be?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't matter, because like I'll say, for instance, the $24,000 that is built in for the 1920. The way it was built in using the ADMs that I'm using for the 2021 school year. Make sure I got the right thing here. It would be a difference of $289 Palisades would have. It was a $943 difference for Penn Ridge and a $654 difference for Quakertown. So it doesn't matter to me. Like when I do the calculation, I can very easily just go back and look at what those percentages were and, you know, just apply it that way. I just, like Megan says, I just need clear direction of how you want the formula to run through it.
And it should be defined in the articles then too, correct?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, I didn't know Steve was talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Teresa, which would be more accurate as far as the sending districts go?
Well, using the percentage that the budget was built with.
Okay, thank you.
To me, that would be.
Thank you.
So we should put language into this new articles agreement to define that then moving forward.
That would be the first paragraph on this sheet. So if a JOC member is inclined later in this agenda to make a motion to approve those articles to be sent out, I mean, in this case, I do think we actually do want a motion so everybody's on the same page. It would, whoever makes that motion would just specify that it would be option 1. We'll call it option 1 here on this sheet. And that will be what goes out to the sending districts in the new articles.
I make a motion that we use option number 1 on the sheet for the articles.
I'll second it.
So that, whoever makes the motion farther down in the meeting.
Further down in the meeting.
I mean, they can make it now. We can just vote on it.
No, we're not going to vote on it now. We need to get through these reports and then we'll get into the action agenda. Everybody seems to be in favor of that. That's fine. We'll move on then.
Perfect.
Anything else?
That is all. Thank you.
Well, wait a minute. There's a motion on the floor. Do we have to vote on it?
I would respectfully ask that the motion be withdrawn. We're going to append this motion to the motion to actually, it's item, I don't know, 10 or 11 in the agenda.
Okay,
11.
you said you were looking for a motion, but okay. I'll
We'll
let
be
you
looking
pass
for
on
a
this.
motion later.
Yes. Apologies for that.
I rescind my motion.
I rescind my second.
Okay, do we have anything else on the articles?
Nope, that's it.
God, I hope not.
There's still the change in the nutritional service funding, and there's that.
Correct, yeah. And that's about it. And a couple of typos, that's it.
Yep. Okay, that should take care of everything. We should be up to the consent calendar. I would need a motion to approve. If this is the way you want to do it, do you want to do them all at once? A motion to approve the January minutes, the January financial reports, the February bills payable, and the personnel recommendations.
Make a motion.
I'll second it.
Now before, because there's now an addition to the personnel portion of this. So before we call the vote, I would ask that there be an opportunity for public comment, and also Mr. Sueda will explain the addition. It is in reference to the cafeteria positions.
Okay.
And that's all you need to do. If Mr. Sueda will explain, and I'll pop in if I need to, and then just allow any public comment, and you can go ahead with the vote.
Okay. We're at that point then, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Sueda?
Okay, so we're adding on the agenda. We spoke about it, the furlough of our cafeteria workers, that we are going to keep them on and have them transition to other positions in the school because of the need of having more facilitators working with our teachers. I feel as though, you know, our cafeteria workers have been in here, so I have to, since September 2nd, and Penridge will be pulling some of their students back out of our lunches, so we need those people in the classrooms. And of course, we're going to be coming back full load next year with all of the schools coming back to lunch, so I'm going to have to bring them back anyway. So that was the change that we had to make on the agenda to furlough, but then bring them in as facilitators for a half a day for each one of those individuals.
And the reason it shows up on the agenda as a furlough is because we can't actually mandate the reassignment in this case. It will be offered to these employees, and if they want it, they can have it. But if they don't, that is their call, and the positions obviously will be furloughed until you know, the cafeteria is up and running at full speed again.
I'm glad you found other ways to, you know, to keep them on and to solve another problem that we have with facilitators for our kids and our teachers. I just want to clarify a little bit about the Penridge pulling out thing. So, you know, based on the high school transitioning to 5 days, there's been some changes to times and lunches, and that's why they're kind of minimizing the amount of the kids that are coming to school for lunches and having them basically at home for lunch, and then switching some other things to make all of that work. So that's really for the rest of this year due to the changes in time to accommodate the pandemic and, you know, minimize the impacts of having those you know, the distancing and masks and all of that. And so that is for this year, and a lot of that is switching kids actually to eating at home and minimizing the amount of time that they're the number of kids that are coming in and having lunch. So just to kind of clarify that. And then obviously next year is a whole different ballgame. So.
Yeah, next year, you know, we plan on, you know, going back to regular schedules and having our cafeteria back to, you know, serving 400 lunches a day or more. So it's just temporary for the next 72 days from February 22nd until the end of the year.
Okay. Are we okay with the way this is structured, Mr. Khan?
We'll just open the floor for public comment.
Okay. Is there any public comment?
Limited to that issue, obviously.
Yes.
Limited to the new.
Anybody? Is there any more comments from the board members on this motion, which includes all 4 items? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. Is there anyone abstaining from this vote? Are there any negative votes for this motion? Seeing no negatives or abstentions, the motion passes 9-0. The next item, item 8, we need a motion to approve the revised policy 137.1, 143, 144, and 146 as discussed in January. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion.
I'll second. Mr.
Okay.
Spear.
Is there any comment, question on this motion? Okay, we'll move to a vote. Is there anybody abstaining from the vote? Is there any negative for the vote? Seeing no negatives or abstentions, the motion passes 9-0. The next item is the radio replacement. There's a motion required. Motion to approve the purchase of 85 Motorola DTR 700 radios for campus-wide communications for faculty, staff, and the law enforcement program. We have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. There's any questions or comments on this motion?
I just wanted to make a comment, just basically for the public to hear that, you know, part of us choosing this this program, it's not just purchasing the radios. It's you know, the way the radios work. It's really a safety issue because of the lack of cellular service along the campus there, and it is also, you know, part of the program and part of the curriculum for the police and law enforcement program.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll call the vote. Any abstentions to the motion? Any negatives to the motion? Seeing no negative or abstentions to the motion passes 9-0. Item 10 is a motion. We need a motion to approve the proposed. Is this too soon for this? I thought Tracy's. Okay. A motion to approve the proposed budget for 21-22 school year and its submission to the joint board for final approval. Do we have a motion? I don't see a motion now. I will say that Teresa's timeline showed that we discuss it now and vote on the proposed budget after it's been presented to the homeschools. Am I looking at that right, Teresa?
That was my impression from how it was read as well.
Yeah, I'm looking up that schedule. Yeah, so right here it has the February 2021. Actually, maybe Dennis can bring this back up. It's page 6 on the budget.
So that is the timeline, but Tracy had said that you guys always did a motion to approve it to be sent on to the final board for the approval.
Yes, to the.
Not approving, yeah.
So.
Always approved to send it on to the rest of the boards.
Okay, and then we're gonna have to approve the final budget come May? April. And then have the joint board approve it in April, May? Is that what you want? You want to let it go that long?
Well, if no.
I actually like, to Jim's point, I actually like the way that this is laid out instead. And I do like it going, I do like that we get the presentation and then the sending districts also get that presentation so we can hear any feedback from them as well. And then it all comes back and then we vote on it here. And then we still vote on it before they vote on it anyway. So
we're just approving to send this presentation to them.
Well, no, you're approving this budget and then sending it to them. But I think that the way that this is written out, and to Jim's point, I actually really like that process better. And that is what we did last year.
Can I recommend that perhaps someone make a motion to approve the proposed preliminary budget? And then the rest of the motion the same?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
Okay. My understanding here is that this is a motion to approve the proposed budget for its submission to the, basically the joint board, which is the sending schools, with the understanding that before the joint board makes the final vote on the budget, it will come back to the JOC to be adopted and then sent to the joint board to be approved. Is that what we're looking at? Everybody
Correct.
understand that?
Yeah, this is the preliminary. It's not the final.
That is correct.
Okay. Everybody understands? We'll move to vote. Any abstentions to this vote?
Can I ask who seconded that, please?
Scott Freeman.
Do we have any abstentions? Do we have any negative votes? All right, this motion passes 9-0. Okay, Teresa? Okay. The next item is the revised Articles of Agreement. Motion to approve the revised Articles of Agreement, which would be the 11th Amendment, and for its submission to the sending districts for their final approval.
With option A, or option 1, sorry.
Option 1, okay. Do we have that motion?
So moved.
That's Megan. A
Second that. I'll second that.
That was correct.
I was waiting. I thought Scott was going to make the motion again.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think we talked this to death unless somebody has something to add. Okay. We'll move to vote. Any abstentions to the vote? Any negatives to the vote? I'm still gonna move against it, but that's just me. Okay, that being said, the motion passes 8-1.
Hey, I have on that recording that you said you were supporting it this time. You said that. I told you I was quoting you, and I said your granddaughter was quoting you too because she was in the background.
Well, you look at that and you'll see that I said that I quoted that one section. Okay. Do we have any recognition comments from the audience on items other than what was in the agenda? I don't see anybody. We have announcements. The next regular JOC meeting is scheduled for March 18th, and I guess it will be at 8 o'clock with the committee meetings prior to. Any other announcements?
Just one quick thing. David Kahn, could you then switch in the language for 1 and then resend that to the entire JOC and administration so that everyone has it, so that way, and the superintendents, business administrator, we can just forward it out to everyone so that everyone has that to be voted on at the sending districts.
And could you add another final to the title too? Because right now you only have 2. So now we need 3.
You noticed that. I would prefer to send it in clean if that's okay. And
yeah, that's fine.
And if someone wants a red line, obviously I'll get it to them.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, I guess that would sort of fall under joint committee concerns. Any other JOC committee members' concerns? I'm not going to go around. Anybody speak up if you have anything. I don't see anything. We've already had the public. The final item is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Commissioner
Second.
Klein and- Okay, you got it. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Okay, we're adjourned and it's not quite 10 o'clock. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.